Welcome back, Nap Trappers. We are so happy to be here with a big topic today, the 4-month sleep regression.
Oh, yes, I know it's a goodie for a lot of families out there who are getting to that point of their little ones growing up just a little bit, and they're probably freaking out, like because we
It
get so
does,
many families,
yeah, it gets
like,
so
oh
much
my God.
airtime
Mm, it
and
does,
there's
it
so
does.
much doom and gloom attached to it. So hopefully we can, talk about what it is
Mm,
and spell it out as we would if we were your sleep consultants. Uh, how to manage it, and also just to put your mind at ease that if you've got an 8-week-old baby and you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I have to gear up for the 4-month sleep regression. I don't know. I think we
mm.
just I like to cross bridges when I get there a little bit more
Yeah.
than having to really anticipate something that may or may not occur.
Mm,
The 4-month sleep regression is a permanent change to your baby's sleep cycles that usually occurs somewhere between the age of 3 months old and 5 months old, hence the
mhm.
4-month old. The reason why a regression is added onto the end is because of this change. Some of the telltale signs that you're in it is that you go from long dreamy stretches, maybe even your 12-week-old baby was sleeping for 8, 9, 10 hours at a time
Mm.
overnight, and all of a sudden you're hearing from them every 1 to 2 hours needing to resettle. Feeds are being brought in, long chunky naps have gone down to 38 minutes on the dot, and the little alarm goes off, and it can just sort of all feel like it spirals a little bit out of control.
Mm.
Now, I think you and I mentioned this whenever we've talked about sleep regressions. Not all babies will go through the regression aspect of the 4-month sleep regression. If
Yeah.
you want to call it a progression, that is also appropriate too. This is a developmental milestone in terms of sort of the architecture of your baby's sleep cycles.
Yeah.
Even the degree in which the regression hits is also baby dependent.
Mhm.
But we have a solution.
We always have a solution.
We always have a solution up our sleeves. Now, I want to say that for anyone listening who feels panicked by it, or maybe even went through the trenches with it with their first baby and are worrying about their next baby, is that neither of my two ever experienced a regression, the 4-month sleep regression. Did their sleep cycles mature? Absolutely. Was I privy to that change? Not at all. And yes, they're the babies of a sleep consultant. But what I would also say is that I have had two very different sleep experiences. One, it's no surprise, she just slept 12 hours at 12 weeks. I wouldn't have known. She sucked her thumb, case closed. But the other baby was a much more, as a client on a consult last week described their baby, animated, much more animated sleeper. And I did need to do a little bit of a few different tools and techniques to get him to sleep really well, but he also didn't hit the regression aspect. Just in case anyone needs a happy story before they go
Hmm.
into this stage.
Mine were fairly similar in the sense that we were on a really good path. I've sort of described the other day how my little guys were sort of sleeping through with a dream feed from 7.5 weeks, 9.5 weeks, and say 14
Incredible.
weeks. So they were on a really great trajectory for sleep overnight as it was. So we didn't really experience a 4-month regression as some families do. But I did notice some changes that were happening and some wake ups, some telltale wake ups that were happening. I didn't really have to do too much in the big
Mm.
scheme of things. But yeah, we've definitely got a really good, easy way to sort of navigate through and build the confidence around you guys getting on top of things and knowing when to sort of step in and when to sort of, leave be. So
Mm.
I think we'll get stuck into that, like the sleep
Well,
cycle's changing.
yeah. So, Beck, do you want to just go through the difference between the sleep cycle that we see with a newborn and then what the structural sort of architectural change is during this 4-month sleep regression?
So up until the 4-month regression, your little one will have a sleep cycle of say 40 to 45 minutes. but they have 2 stages of sleep. So really in a really crude way, you've got 20 minutes of active sleep. So for newborns, they'll have 20 minutes of active sleep and then 20 minutes of deep sleep. So during that active sleep, you'll see them, they're asleep, but you'll see them with their funny facials, they're smiling, they're moving their face all the time. They're really, really cute to look at. But then at that 20-minute mark, that's when they've dropped off to sleep. They're in a really deep sleep phase. Their breathing has changed, and you can pop them down and they're not going to wake for love or money. So that's their sleep cycle from 0 to say 3 months.
And they just kind of float between those 2 stages, right? They just float.
That's right.
It could be 20 minutes tops. It could also be 3-hour naps. They march the beat of their own drum.
Yeah, that's right. So they kind of just sleep as long as they need to sleep or until they need a feed and all those sorts of things. So it's very fluid. When our little ones have moved through the 4-month regression and their sleep cycle has matured, now they've got a 40 to 45-minute sleep cycle still, but they have, instead of having 2 stages of sleep, they have 4 stages of sleep. Or I really like to sort of encourage families to understand it in terms of like a 5-stage sleep cycle. So the first stage of sleep is your little one closing their eyes. So the first 10 minutes, closing their eyes, drifting off to sleep. The next 10 to 20 minutes, they're getting deeper into sleep, but they're still in an active phase. So that means that if there was a loud knock at the door or a dog barked or they were really overtired and had elevated levels of cortisol, then they might sort of spring awake. If you manage to bypass any of that happening, then they will cycle into the deep sleep phase around the 20 to 30 minute mark. And then the deep sleep phase continues for the 30 to 40 minute mark. At that point, at the end of that stage of sleep, they are cycling to the top of their sleep cycle. So the sleep cycle is ending and their 3 senses are switching back on. So sight, touch, and hearing. So that's, for me, the 5th stage of sleep, because this is the partial arousal that happens in between sleep cycles. So for me, this is like the actual crux of what happens in terms of our little ones being able to return back to sleep or call out and need lots of assistance. So when our little ones, their senses have switched back on, so sight, touch, and hearing, quite often they're having a little partial arousal. They're having a little look around, perhaps their bassinet or cot, and they're double checking everything is exactly the same as when they fell asleep initially. So this really highlights to our families this really highlights how your little one is falling asleep and if they're needing a lot of help during those first 10 minutes. So as they're closing their eyes, how are they falling asleep? Are they being rocked or held or patted or skydived to sleep? If that's the case, then they're thinking at the end of their sleep cycle, sight, touch, and hearing, I
Where's
can't
that
smell my
parachute?
mum. I can't feel that cool breeze in my face. So they can't smell mum, they can't feel mum, there's no boob in their mouth, there's no bottle in their mouth, they're not in mum's arms, now they're in a cot. Oh my goodness, things have changed since I fell asleep. I need all those things in order to go back down, so they tend to wake and call out needing assistance.
One of the other things also that I see is the dummy's fallen out. They go down with the dummy and then hang on, I can't get it. I'm only 4 months old.
Yes.
I've still got my arms strapped down.
And they're trying desperately to move their head over to get it.
Help me. And I think this is where, as always, there are absolutely some babies that even 4-month sleep regression onwards and after their sleep cycles change, that are just cruisy sleepers.
Yeah.
They can be fed to sleep. They come out of there, they're like, no big deal. Sure, I don't have a bottle or a breast in my mouth, but I'll just go back down. And it just never becomes an issue. For so many other babies, it's just simply not the case. And I know I talk about it all the time, but there's the residential one of the residential sleep schools here in Melbourne will take you from 4 months of age, because this is such a time of potentially tricky sleep for so many families. But what I would also say is that for me, rather than fearing it, is that I almost take it as a sign of like, great, baby has shown me that developmentally they're ready to sleep differently. I can now, if I haven't already, really start to sort of double down on working on independent sleep or weaning out the associations that they have. As you said, what is baby having done to help them go to sleep? Are they being rocked all the way to sleep? Are they being fed all the way to sleep? How can we be doing less so that it's less of a rude shock at the end of a sleep cycle, and needing to signal to call out? And I guess that's where teaching a baby to self-settle, so making that transition from awake to asleep on their own, starts to come in clutch, because then at the end of a sleep cycle, the goal is that, oh, you've already got this great skill of moving through all those layers and through the stages of the sleep cycle independently. Guess what? Now you get to do it at the end of the next sleep cycle, and the next one, and the next one overnight. And that's where sleep training, sleep work, self-settling, whatever you want to call it, can be the game changer if you are in the thick of a tricky 4-month sleep regression. So
yeah, that's
even
true.
with my tricky second sleeper, I told myself I just have to get to 4 months and then I can sleep train. Now, I didn't actually end up needing to meet that deadline or that milestone, because he taught himself to sleep earlier. He discovered his thumb, and what it showed me was that, so granted, anecdotal evidence here, I have a sample size of 2, but both of my babies knew how to self-settle, truly self-settle, and were always given the opportunity prior to 4 months. Even prior to 3.5 months, prior to 3 months, they always had that opportunity, and then they happened to piece it together before the sleep cycle maturation and change. So my belief in my anecdotal evidence is that I didn't experience a 4-month sleep regression because they already knew how to self-settle and link sleep cycles independently before that. And then if there was any wobbles, I was probably giving them a moment to adjust and have a go anyway. So that's why it wasn't really on my radar. They figured to put their thumb in, and that helps them drift back off to sleep. But I had it in my head, because I definitely struggled postpartum with my second, that I just need to get to 4 months and then I can sleep train, and sleep will come good.
I think that it's a testament to being able to put your little one into the cot wide awake to learn how to move through the layering of what it takes to go off to sleep. So the idea behind the sleep work that we do is that we're encouraging families to put their babies into the cot 100% awake, so that then they can do the feeling drowsy, feeling sleepy, nuzzling into my comforter, putting a thumb in my mouth, whatever it takes for them to go off to sleep. And then at the end of that sleep cycle, when they have their partial arousal and they're double checking everything's exactly the same, the checklist then becomes, okay, how did I fall asleep initially? Is everything exactly the same? And then it's sort of like, so with sight, touch, and hearing, the sight part is, am I still in my cot? Yes, I'm still in my cot.
Is it still pitch black?
Is it still pitch black? Yes. Is that sound still on? That, yes, the brown noise still on, yay. Am I still nice and warm? Yes. It's so all these sort of checklists are being ticked off to relax them enough to then go back off to sleep. So nothing has changed. And so that's where that's why it's so important for us to encourage families to teach their babies how to self-settle, so that then they can use that same skill set across the course of the night.
Whereas, that's exactly what we're doing as adults.
Yeah, that's right.
Multiple times overnight, we pull up the doona, we roll over, we don't even know, but we have the same sort of micro wakings, and we self-settle. And so it's
Yes,
just about, we do, we're self-settling all night long, unless we have a baby who is up every 45 minutes overnight. I'm so sorry, Beck. I did not mean to cut you off before.
Oh, no, I'm always happy to hear you chat.
And hear me often you will. I also want to say that, and you and I, we really are trying not to sugarcoat a lot of things and just speak honestly about what a real experience could be like, is that it's important to know that the 4-month sleep regression is a permanent change in the way that your baby sleeps. Now, the regression aspect does not have to be permanent. We would be very bad at our job if we left you with a baby waking every 2 hours.
Yeah.
But all that to say that it's not a this too shall pass sort of,
Oh,
once the
yes.
tooth cuts through, then sleep will go back, or
Yes.
once we get over this virus or the jet lag settles or whatever it is that may have caused a regression in sleep. Your baby sleep cycles have matured permanently. And so, sort of from here on out, is how they are going to sleep. And it is not uncommon for us to work with older babies, 10 months, 12 months, 15 months, who post 4 months have never slept well, that
Yeah.
are still waking multiple times overnight and looking for a lot of hands on assistance because of the 4-month sleep cycle change. It can absolutely be fixed, for want of a better word, at all of these times down the road. But just to give you an idea that it's not one of those moments that, oh, well, in 2 weeks, what's the finish line?
Yeah.
You know, is it
Yes.
6 weeks?
Yeah.
Is it
Don't
2
hang in
weeks?
there.
Yeah, you don't need to.
Yeah. And there are small things that you can do to actively optimize the nights without sort of getting stuck into a pickle. So let's just say you feed your little one off to sleep at bedtime, they're going down at bedtime, and typically, and like, this is all fine, like say you're feeding to sleep and then they are on 2 feeds overnight. So feed to sleep at bedtime, then they're awake at 10:30 for a feed, great, they go back down and then they're waking around 2:30 for another feed, and then they're up to start their day at 6:30. So nothing to see here, totally fine. But then the
Great.
4-month regression hits, and then what you start to see is going down at bedtime, waking at 10:30 for a full feed, but then waking at 12:30 for a full feed. And then or maybe not even for a full, they're not waking for a full feed. They're just waking because now their sleep cycle has changed and matured, and they do these things. And then they're waking at 2:30 and 4:30, and then they're up to start the day. So it's very confusing for a lot of families, like if they don't sort of have the heads up in terms of how we navigate through the 4-month regression. Automatically, I think a lot of families are going to presume that their little one is waking because there is potentially a growth spurt. And then so now they're feeding at the 10:30 like they ordinarily would, but 12:30, oh gosh, well, that's unusual. I don't really know how else to get them back to sleep. I think it could be they don't typically wake at this time. I'm going to feed back to sleep, and then we've still got the 2:30, and it's just this multiple sort of feeding buffet that starts to occur. And then what can sometimes happen is that they're feeding so frequently overnight that they're not sort of feeding that well through the day. So lots of changes start to sort of spiral at that point. Naps will sort of take a bit of a nosedive because the feeds aren't complete through the day, and lots of things start to spiral. So then they need those wakings. But one really easy tip for our listeners is, if you are sort of gearing up for the 4-month regression or you're in the thick of it, try and hold steady on what you are currently doing. So if you are feeding at 10:30 and 2:30 of a night time, and you have these wakings at 12:30 and 4:30, just know that those are resettles. Like, hold steady with those 2 feeds that you had anchored in. Anything else is a resettle, whether you resettle with rocking and holding and padding or whatever you want to do, or you use a technique to get them back off to sleep. That's where you can really easily identify which waking is a genuine hunger related waking and which waking is an inability to self-settle. And that's when you go in with your, getting them back to sleep in any other way other than feeding.
The other good indicator that I think often pops up in that scenario, Beck, is if you go in and you think, oh, if that doubt creeps in and you think, oh, this isn't the normal wake, maybe it's a growth spurt, or what am I going to do? I'm going to feed. I don't know what else to do here. And they just sip, they just latch on, or they take 30 mils or something really negligible, then we can say, aha, this is about getting back to sleep versus I've woken from genuine hunger. And I was just talking about this on a consult today with a mother with a 3-month-old who last night slept all the way till 3 a.m. Huge, amazing.
Amazing.
But she'd done some detective work 2 nights prior where at 11:30 she'd gone in to do a feed and this baby took barely anything. And she was like, I don't think you need this. And so the next
Yeah.
night she resettled instead. And what do you know? The baby, the subsequent night,
Mm.
sleeps all the way till 3 a.m. So it's just being curious as well as to what is baby actually taking.
Mm.
And if it's in the early couple of days or week of the regression and we haven't sort of reverse cycled where really are anchoring in feeds overnight or tanking up on feeds rather, then have a look if they're not taking much and it's just comfort back down. Or I'll work with breastfeeding mothers that say, I've just become the human pacifier. If you are feeling
Yes.
like that, then we know that that is because baby is looking to just suck to go back to sleep. And it's a really
Mm.
common, normal habit to
Yeah,
get into.
really normal.
Yeah.
And so it really just becomes looking at bedtime. So if you're really stuck in a pickle where there's multiple wakings and you're doing lots of resettlings and you've got your feeds in there, but you're sort of looking at, okay, what can we do next? The key is to look at how your little one falls asleep at bedtime. Like the first 10 minutes of their sleep cycle, how are they getting off to sleep? Are you rocking, holding, patting, feeding, shushing, bouncing? What are you doing then? Because that's what they're associating with falling asleep, and that's what they're looking for in order to return back to sleep overnight. So once you sort of identify what the prop is for your little one to fall asleep, then it's a case of starting to create a gap between the prop and falling asleep. And we usually, when it's a feed, we try and space the feed at least to start half an hour before the expected bedtime, so that there's at least, say, 10 to 15 minutes between the end of the feed and going into the cot. So we're not creating that association of feeding to sleep. And if there's rocking, you can still keep rocking and bouncing and all that as part of the bedtime. It's just that you're offering little moments of it rather than the active, I'm using this as a way to help you feel drowsy and really calm so that I can put you into the cot semi-asleep. We want to be putting our little ones into the cot 100% awake so that they can do the feeling drowsy, feeling sleepy, conking out, doing that whole layering in the cot for themselves. So the key is for us putting like drowsy, drowsy but awake is not a thing for us.
No.
It's just not, it doesn't work that way. You really want your little one to be 100% awake going into the cot so they can learn
Agreed.
the art of falling asleep independently.
And it is an art. And you can teach it as well and support your baby to do it. And you will watch them do some sort of weird and wonderful way, humming themselves to sleep. My son now pats his face. He ditched his thumb and he pats himself. But maybe it is they become a finger or thumb sucker. They bang their legs. They rub their head. There's lots of different ways. They bang their dummies together.
Yes.
There's lots of often with rhythm and motion. A lot of babies move their bodies to get sleep, and when you watch that on the monitor, let them have a go because they're trying to do what we're asking them to do, which is figure out how do they fall asleep so that they can figure that out again, 1 or 2 hours later in the night, and then we can also ask for that from a nap perspective. I think as always, whenever we hit a regression, we also need to look at the day work. And so from 4 months onwards, you and I will absolutely start working to spaced feedings, breast or bottle, doesn't matter so long as they're getting full, complete feeds and a nice full tummy. We'll start working to a bit more of a schedule. And if your baby is 4 months old and they're doing it textbook 4 months sleep regression at 4 months old, short naps are still completely age appropriate. And so we work with scheduling both for babies that can take longer naps and babies that are still taking, I will take 4 45-minute naps happily at this age. We just want to get these feeds in, get some sleep in the tank and get to bedtime, which is where the magic happens of teaching a baby to self-settle. And that's how we tackle it. So if you're in the thick of the 4-month sleep regression, know that this is a completely normal developmental change and milestone that all babies will go through. The degree in which they go through the regression is very case by case. It can feel really hard, and you are not alone at all in that. And it can also feel abrupt. I don't know about you, Beck, but I work with a lot of families that feel like just one night a switch was flicked and they went from 8 hours to, oh my goodness, I heard from my baby every 1 hour last night.
Yeah.
What on earth has gone on? This must be the 4-month sleep regression. We do a quick audit of the day. We move to 4-hourly feeds if, 4 months onwards. We get some naps in and we have a look at bedtime and overnight and just be really cool, calm, collected about how we're going to teach a baby to self-settle at bedtime and then transfer that skill overnight, including feeds as well.
Yeah, the key is to not panic and to know that it is a process. Like, it's not something that ordinarily is fixed within 1 or 2 nights. Like, we have to be repetitive, consistent, and follow through, and just resign yourself to putting in the hard work. It's an investment, and it's just normal. It's part of the sleep, work that we do, and you will get through it. But you'll be setting yourself up for great success if you can really commit to following through on on resettling
and if you happen to be listening to this with an older baby thinking we're still going through the 4-month sleep regression, chances are you probably are. And also, once again, that's really normal and a common experience, and you can make change at any time. It is never too late to teach your baby to self-settle and right this ship.
That's right.
And if you don't hit it, carry on. Skip this episode. Don't anticipate. I think that's one of the other things I see is, but my baby's a great sleeper. We've maybe even worked on some self-settling. They're 3.5 months old. I'm just kind of waiting. Or maybe they're 4.5 months and think, oh, maybe it'll be when they turn 5 months. Let's let sleeping babies lie. It could very well, you could breeze through it and it's all just happening and you've just got a bit of a cruisier sleeper and all those foundations you laid really start to come into play. I do think that is a common question of, if I have worked on self-settling already, will I skip the regression aspect? In my house, yes. In a lot of cases, yes. But also don't, it's not a failure if you still experience increased night wakings or shorter naps. If anything, you think, okay, great, I've already started working on these skills. I'm going to double down now and bring it home. Yeah. So you have already started, and you'll make it easier if you've already started.
That's right. You've done it the bulk of the work already.
Exactly. Yep.
No, I think that's a really nice, punchy sort of way to sort of encourage families to be okay with the 4-month regression.
No need to fear. No doom and gloom.
Be okay with it. Yeah, and don't let anyone freak you out. Like, it's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine. And this is where I will say to parents, if I've worked with them younger, don't worry, we just touch base. If that happens, we make a new plan. You don't need to anticipate or pre-game. Equally, if you are one of those families listening and think sleep has never been good and I've got a 10-week-old and sleep is still really hard. We never had those 8-hour stretches. You get to 4 months old or 5 months old, great. Then you can absolutely make more active change because that is also a common experience. So they're like, forget these lifelong naps. We've never had great sleep. 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, it's all the same. But know that this is a great time. So if someone says, when is the perfect time or when is a great time to start sleep training, I think you can actually start sleep training when you hit the 4-month sleep regression. You can do sleep shaping and a lot of great foundation laying up until that point. But if you are in the thick of the 4-month sleep regression, game on if you are interested in sleep training.
Yeah, it does make sense to do it then if you're in the thick of it. Perfect.
Excellent. All right. Well, hopefully there's no fear mongering here. Regression, progression, whatever you want to call it, we have got the tips and tricks to help guide you through. So I hope this has been able to be helpful for a lot of families listening.
Thanks, team. Stay with us.